Today, I'm going to share a one-on-one coaching call I had with a lovely woman named Charlotte. Her questions have to do with how to arrange furniture in an extra large living area that's open to the kitchen, and how to deal with the style of the house, which she describes as rustic, when the things she owns and loves lean more toward clean lines and sophisticated finishes. We also touch on what to do with a big blank wall, rug size, and making better use of a wood stove that's between the living area and the kitchen. Let's jump into my conversation with Charlotte. Welcome, Charlotte, to the Slow Style Home Podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
So you fairly recently moved, is that right?
We moved to this house in July.
Okay, right. So it's been 6 months,
Yep.
and which is still recent, I think. In your own words, just tell me a little bit about what you wanted to talk about today. What are your frustrations or questions?
So the house has a lot of rustic charm. So there's a lot of original wood paneling from like the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
It's slightly yellowish, but like not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yeah.
kind of grown to love it.
Yeah.
The first thing we did when we bought the home was paint everything white, which I know is kind of boring, but I really needed a blank slate. And then we also had overhead lights put in the living area that we're talking about today. It's the darkest room in the house. It
Okay.
doesn't get a lot of natural light.
Yeah.
We bought a couch, like a really big couch, put that in for like lounging and watching TV. And we do like some yoga and mobility. And there is this really large wall. And I have no idea what to do with it. I don't love the room. I don't hate it. It's kind of blah. It doesn't have a lot of personality. And I'm kind of terrified of doing something and then hating it because I've done that in the
Yes.
past. It's like time and money. And like
Yeah.
I feel short on time. Like I work a lot and I have a lot of other projects, and like while I enjoy decorating, I also don't want to be like fixing bad design
Yeah.
choices.
Yes.
So I'll stop there because I just said a
Okay.
lot.
That is great. I love that you said you wanted to start with a blank slate, and I love that you painted everything white. Taking the time to just wipe it clean first, I think a lot of people don't do, and so I'm really glad you did do that. I think it was well worth that time investment. Okay, let's just take a quick tour of the room. So here, I believe we're looking at the front door, and so if you were coming in the front door, what you would see is the living room, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and then
Wait,
the wood floors, I think, are quite beautiful and really ground the space and give it a little bit of character. So at least you've got a good floor to start with. This is the big couch that you're talking about. It's a nice brown leather couch, and behind it, we can see a little bit of an eat-in kitchen area. Here we see a velvet tufted pink couch. I would say like dusty pink, would you say?
like a salmon color.
Oh, a
Yeah, a
salmon
little bit.
color. Okay.
Oh, yep.
And I know you had a question about that specifically about whether or not it kind of
Mhm.
works in this house. It was came from your old house. And then the other element that you wanted to talk about today was this
Wood
stove,
stove.
wood stove that you kind of wanted to make better use of. Where in the country do you live?
I am in rural Montana.
Okay, so yeah, you want to see and be near warm fire, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So this is the space that we're talking about. And then over here, and I think you have another photo of the big, huge TV wall. Yes, it
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
humongous wall. So I get why you put in overhead lights, because if you didn't have any of these lights and you only basically had this window, wow, yes, I can imagine it was a very dark room. Did you
Very.
by any chance put the overheads on a dimmer?
Yes.
Good. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. It's
Yep. So
not
I
hard to
actually
do.
adjust that all day long.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, where to start? I usually like to start with the function of the room first and make sure that we are not forgetting that. You mentioned TV watching and you mentioned doing some yoga, but you also said that you like to have friends over for like game night. So,
Yep.
this living room is multifunctional. The good news in your case is that it's a large room, and so I'm thinking we're going to be able to divide it up a little bit. visually, not with walls, but visually, so that you actually have clearly defined two areas that have different purposes.
When we have people come over for games, we often pick up that pink couch,
Mm-hmm.
put it in front of the TV, and then bring in
Ah,
a table that's in
yes.
another room, and then we all just kind of like we just literally adjust the room
Yeah,
during those
right,
nights.
right. So I'm actually glad that you take the time and trouble to move the couch to make sure that people are sitting together and can have a good conversation. But obviously, you don't want to keep doing that.
No.
Um, so that begs the question, where is the TV area? You could put the couch here going this way so that it is parallel to this wall
Yeah.
and put the TV there. Although it kind of would be the first thing you saw when you walked in the front door. If we put some other things around the TV, I think it would make it feel less in your face.
Okay.
And the things that you put around it can be anything from like a built-in bookcase around it to just
Yeah.
some things on the wall. Now, one time, what I did to kind of mask the TV in a den was I hung black and white photos around the TV because when the TV's off, it's this big black blob. And so I
Yeah.
kind of worked with that by doing all black and white photos. So if you put the TV there and you put the couch there, the back of the couch is probably fine to look at. And you could even put like a little couch console table that's the height of the couch right behind it, where you could style that with a table lamp, some plants, books that have little bookends on them to kind of really help define this corner area. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I would take this rug that you have that looks very nice, and I would probably move this into this corner to create your TV watching zone.
Yeah.
And now this feels very private because you're walking kind of into the back of the couch, so you immediately see the boundary line, the visual boundary, and you've got the rug doing the rest of that work of creating the space. You asked me in your email if the rug was too small. It is too small the way it's being used right now because it's kind of just
Mhm.
floating in the room. It's not really like there's no piece of furniture that's sitting on it or kind of anchoring it, but it wouldn't be too small if it was tucked in this corner and was just for the purpose that we're talking about, where like the two front legs of the couch could be on the edge of the rug. And then I would think about creating almost a whole other space for your living area. Let's go to a different photo.
Do you think I should keep the TV stand or just get
That's,
rid of it and put the TV on the wall?
I mean, that's totally up to you. That's where you might want to put a record player or books or
Yeah.
plants or, something, photographs in frames. And so if the TV's on the wall, it kind of frees up that space nicely. But I don't think that's a priority. I would keep this for as long as you need to until you're ready to buy something else or you're ready to pay for an electrician to mount the TV, because I think you might have to have an electrician, I don't know, to fish the wires through. Because if it's on the wall, you want to make it as neat as possible and you don't want the
Yeah.
wires hanging down. But this whole unit, this whole TV area gets moved way over to this corner.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you're going to have two very distinct areas. First, you've got the rug and the couch helping delineate, but then also what you hang on the wall is going to help delineate. Okay.
I like
And
that.
then I'm suggesting perhaps a swivel chair
Yep.
that is sort of catty corner to the couch and can swivel to talk to somebody on the couch. Now
Yep.
you don't really need a lot more seating to be facing the TV. And then what I would have sort of along the wall where the window is a little table that when you are sitting and looking at the fire, you've got a place to put your coffee, your book,
Yeah.
whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, this could be your like 15-minute a day chair where you come home from work or running errands or whatever it is, and you just sit, you just sit, just stare at the fire for a minute. And it looks like there's definitely room here for a little table like that.
I'm guessing with this plan, the pink couch isn't going to stay in that area, so there would be plenty of room for a little swivel chair and a table.
Yes. Now, gallery walls. Gallery walls can be great if you don't have a huge piece of art, but you have a huge space to fill up. And I think that's why most people start doing them. So this area right here, this might have just one big huge piece and in the TV watching area. And then this area over here, that might be a gallery wall. And it's going to make sense when you've got furniture grouped around these two separate areas that really help you define, oh, these two areas have distinct purposes. So I
Yeah.
know it sounds a little weird right now to think about hanging some stuff on this side of the wall and some stuff on this side of the wall. And what about the middle here? But I promise if once you get the couch in there,
Yeah.
you're going to see that the room is purposefully divided.
Yes. Okay.
Now, the trick is with the rest of the space is to figure out what am I walking into when I first come in? And what seems like the most logical thing to try first is to put the pink couch either back to back against the brown couch or put the pink couch perpendicular to that with its back up against the big blank wall. And in this photo, I really see that right here to the right of the big, huge wall, you've got a huge doorway, or not a
Yeah.
huge, I mean, you've got a doorway that's important that takes you into another part of the house. So
Yes.
we can't block that at all.
Nope.
I can't quite tell if you would have enough room for two couches to be back to back.
Would they need to touch? Like how much space in between them?
No space necessarily, or you could put a console table between them, which is,
Okay.
it's like 16 inches, 12 inches, something like
Yeah.
that.
The TV area would be pretty small, but I think that's okay, right?
I think that's okay. We tend to think of them in big family rooms, but the truth is that we tend to just watch TV alone or with one other person. Or
Yeah.
when your kids are younger, if you have kids, maybe you're all snuggling on the couch, but when they're young, they're small, they don't take up a lot of room. And then when they get bigger, they don't want to watch shows with you. So
Yeah.
I really think that this little corner in here, I would make this as cozy as you can without it
Okay.
feeling cramped.
Yeah.
I guess my thinking is if we had the two couches back to back so that you'd be facing the pink couch when you walked in the door,
Yeah.
that's a very pretty thing to look at when you walk in the front door. However, I'm not sure where the other seating would go because the whole point of putting a second couch in would be to then face other people like guests that are coming over.
Yeah.
My suggestion is that you map out the TV area with painter's tape on your floor if you don't
Yeah.
feel like moving furniture around, and then like sit on the floor and face this wall and get as close as you can before you start feeling it's too close and too cramped.
Yeah.
And then you'll know how much of this space you have to work with. What you might end up doing is you'd put the couch here and put two chairs across from here, which would be kind of good because it would allow for easy entry into the area.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to see that and see if it looks weird. I mean, what you don't want is to look like that it looks like a maze or like a bunch of puzzle pieces. And I don't think it would look like that, but I think I would have to kind of see it.
Yeah. Okay. I like the idea. I think it's not something I would have considered before, splitting up the room basically into two, which
Mm-hmm.
I think is a good idea. I think it could make that TV watching more cozy and like make it less of the focal point,
Right.
which I am all about.
Okay.
I think there's definitely a couple more furniture pieces that might be needed.
Mm-hmm.
I think visually, I think I need to move the furniture to see how much space I have. We have a white couch in our sunroom that I can also move in here for space to kind of understand. Even if it's not our permanent piece, it could kind of
Right.
hold us over until we find something. I don't know, it's an idea.
That's a great idea. And I really encourage people to use what you already have to figure out if it works. So
Yeah,
even if you ended up having three couches in this room, it's
yeah,
just going to give you the feel like you're going to really viscerally understand what does it feel like to have a separate seating area for the hangout space that is completely distinct from the TV watching space. And
yeah,
then, if you start with two couches and say, okay, well, where does it feel best to have a couch up here against the wall or out here in the middle of the room?
yeah,
Maybe up against the wall. And then in the middle, floating more in the middle of the room are two, like, upholstered, comfy chairs.
yeah. Okay.
And then you're going to want two separate rugs to find
Yes.
space. But
Yep.
for the time being, I would just use this rug that you already have in the living room area.
Yep.
Leave and have no rug for the hangout area until you're sure of the furniture arrangement.
For sure. It's funny because when you play games, half the time people get on their like hands and knees.
Mm-hmm. If it's
I
a
could
board game,
almost,
yeah,
yeah, I could almost have like a stack of like floor pillows.
totally.
But I'm thinking about like how would we actually use that space? I'm thinking like rug, a table,
Right.
floor pillows.
Floor
You know,
pillows are great because they're movable, or ottomans. We're
yeah,
not quite on the floor, but they're easy to move because they don't weigh as much.
yeah,
And they also visually, in terms of their height, they are lower. And so when you look across the entire kind of landscape of the room, you don't have a bunch of tall things.
yeah,
So more seating you need.
yeah,
And then the other two major things that I think you'll need to add are tables, side tables. So you need a place to put drinks while you're watching TV. You need a place for people to put drinks while they're hanging out. You may end up wanting a coffee table in the hangout area, but not in the
yeah,
living room area.
yeah,
Especially if you have like on either side of the couch, it can be a stack of books. It doesn't need to be an actual side table. It can
yeah.
be a garden stool that you bring in. It doesn't have to
Okay.
be an actual side table. And they don't have to match, but you might want to have a coffee table for the game area. Then I think the throw pillow slash ottoman idea is a great one.
I do too. I like that a lot.
The other thing that I said that you are going to need to get, I think, is more lighting. So
Really?
the ceiling light is great because it gives it sort of this over, it kind of brightens it up overall. But in
Yeah,
order to create moods for lighting to kind of be flattering to people when they're over, and for it
yeah,
to help define the areas, you're going to want to sprinkle a couple more sources of light around. I don't know what those are going to be. I don't know if they're going to be, a big tall floor lamp. I don't know if it's going to be a little light on each table. That really is going to depend more on how the furniture is arranged and for you to kind of see what your needs are. Like, for instance, if you did have a little swivel chair right here facing the wood stove, you might want to have, it looks like you already do, but you might want to have like a reading light there.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Okay, so more lamps. I
so
can do
more
that.
lamps. So right, more seating, more lamps, another rug. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Let's talk about what you might hang on the wall. What ideas do you have and what do you already own?
It's our old house in Salt Lake City it was like 100 years old, had totally been remodeled. Everything was white countertops,
Okay.
white cabinets,
Yes.
lots of light. My
Yep.
pink couch looked so beautiful there.
I
It was kind of
bet.
like this pop of pink.
Right.
So then my style, I had a lot of black accents and it looked
Okay. Yeah.
really nice. It was kind of like this like chic,
It sounds
vintage,
sophisticated.
modern.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like a cocktail party, like feeling.
Yes. Which is what I tend to gravitate toward.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then this house is rustic. And I don't have the budget to rip it all out and like
No.
get it to bare bones and like kind of force this like Montana house to look very chic and sophisticated, which means that a lot of my artwork, I had this like old like Fornasetti poster, like
Uh-huh.
Italian, black and white, I mean just black, like it looked
Yeah.
really cool, but
Yeah.
I haven't figured out how to make it work in this space. So
So tell me, what do you consider to be rustic? Because there are no striking, obvious, I should say, architectural details that is making it feel rustic to me. You've got a
okay,
wood stove, which feels rustic.
yep. The
Um,
kitchen cabinets are really dark wood.
okay, yep. So
I'm
that
just
is
choosing to
feeling,
ignore those.
yep. I think
Um,
only one space at a time.
yep. Yeah, the
Okay.
wood trim around around every door frame and around it's all like wood paneling.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Which
So
I mean I could have painted, but then I was just like I might make a huge mistake in painting it, so I'm not gonna do that. I'm
what
gonna
kind of
wait.
wood is it nice wood? Is it like beautifully grained?
Yeah, it's quite pretty.
It's
I would
quite
say it's like
pretty.
a high quality. The
Okay.
only thing I don't like about it is it's got kind of this like slightly yellowish tint.
I think that the items that are sticking out to you kind of like a sore thumb because they're rustic and that's not really you don't that's not kind of representing who you are. I think they're much less of a problem than you think they are, or they don't need to direct and be the boss of the room as a whole. The wood floor, if you can imagine, I mean, a gorgeous like glass chandelier from France in here with this tufted pink velvet couch and this oriental rug here. I mean, I think that the rustic floor would make a fabulous contrast to all of that.
Okay.
I'm not saying to hang a big chandelier there. I'm just saying style wise, if we could deal with the other elements that make it feel rustic, I think the floor is actually going to end up being like your best friend. I think it's going to really be the contrast that takes it from kind of generic, chic, sophisticated glam into something that feels much more lived in over time.
Okay.
I would consider painting the trim
Would you?
only because you said of what you said about it being one of the elements that makes it feel rustic to you. You already know
Yeah.
you're going to be dealing with the cupboards here, with the
Yeah.
kitchen cabinets. So that eventually will also be taken care of. But for right now, I would go ahead and paint that trim. This is a really big room to try to paint a single color that is bold, like a deep, sexy, dusky teal, or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
Like that might be too much.
Yeah.
But what you might end up doing is finding a really soft neutral for the walls and painting the trim a nice creamy white.
I mean, if I paint the trim there, then I would paint it throughout the rest of the house.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Including what about my wood doors?
Yes, I think that if you're going to paint the trim, you got to paint the doors. But that'll only make this piece stand out even more.
I just think I needed someone to give me permission because it's scary. It's scary to paint nice wood,
I
even
know.
if you don't like it.
Listen, never paint wood is sort of an old-fashioned rule
Uh-huh.
that is just not, it just doesn't come into play. The nice thing, unless you love it. Now, the nice thing about, and you don't love it because it feels kind of
No.
yellow to you.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about painting wood that has a little bit of character to it is that the texture of the wood, of the molding, if there's any
Hmm.
ridge or anything to it, that's going to stay. That's not going anywhere with paint.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to lose anything. I
I
do
like it.
think, okay, I do think that open floor plans are tricky. They're very popular, but I think they're really tricky to decorate.
Yeah.
Because not only do you have a big, huge room, but you've got doorways and windows to deal with that usually then limit what you can do in terms of furniture arrangement.
Yeah. I
The good
agree.
news is you've got a lot to work with. You've got two
Yeah.
fabulous couches. You've got a great looking rug. The stand that your TV is on is perfectly fine for right now.
Yes.
Um,
Thank you.
but I feel like we didn't really come back around to this wall and what to hang. I would start hanging what you had in your other home. And
Really?
I really would. I would not start over. If it
Okay.
speaks to you and it represents who you are, I
You
would
put it
start
up there.
there. And then probably
Okay.
what you're,
So here's what I'm thinking
yeah,
then.
okay, yeah,
Okay. In the last 2 minutes, let's think about this.
yeah,
So I have that big black poster of like,
yeah,
it's all these like suns. It's kind of like dark. And I think that will go in the TV area.
yes, yes.
And then on the right side, I don't know what you think about this, but I had friends who had these like kind of raw wood shelves
Uh-huh.
with tons of books. I'm a big reader. I
Yep,
kind of like the idea of maybe doing a lot of shelves
yep, on this
and
side.
and yep, and then maybe some like plants that are kind of like I don't know. That could be
Yeah,
another idea, and it could be a nice contrast of like green against the pink,
absolutely.
which I like those two colors together.
I love that idea.
Okay.
And especially if you are a reader, I think putting
Yeah.
books out, I think that just expresses a lot of who a person is when you're looking at what they're reading. And shelves, of course, offer plenty of opportunity to tuck in travel mementos or
Yes.
photos or whatever, plants for sure.
Yeah.
And the way you style it is going to say a lot about who you are and what you're currently interested in. And the other thing is that with shelves, you can take things on and off so that when you start to get bored with something you've put up there or with how you've arranged it, you rearrange it or you switch things out to keep it fresh so that
Yes.
you don't want your eyes to kind of start glazing over the thing. Like if you've got mementos up there that are very meaningful, if you kind of stop seeing them, it's time to switch them out. You can bring them back
Yes.
later or move them to a different room or whatever. But shelves offer that kind of flexibility, and they're a great way to add a lot of personality and character to a home.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
one last thing, I am also, because you mentioned the swivel TV thing. The other idea is that your big poster, your
Ooh,
big black and white Fornacetti goes here, so
yeah.
it is the first thing you see when you walk in. The TV goes all the way to this corner facing the way it is right now, but it's on a
And
swivel that comes out to the couch.
yes. I do like that a lot.
So that is, since you seem to be up for the swivel idea, that is that is also an option. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm very excited for you. I think this
Thank
has
you.
so much potential, and I really like that you are motivated to do something about it. So I feel really positive. I feel like good things are going to happen pretty soon.
Thank you so much. I
You
appreciate you
are
so much
welcome,
for this.
Charlotte. You are my pleasure.